A lot of what goes on playing fingerstyle blues is happening in between the notes. So that's why you can play something from tab that it looks like you're playing it right, but it doesn't feel complete. If I played the example I did in the opening and just played the notes, you'd hear this. And even if I sped it up a little bit, there's something missing. And what's missing are the offbeats, all the sort of subdivisions, the eighth notes. I'm playing quarter notes on top, mostly, and I'm playing quarter notes in the bass. So you get a lot of quarter notes and you're missing that shuffle pulse that's supposed to be going on. A lot of what's going on are these invisible notes or ghost notes. How you get those into your groove is what I'm going to show you in today's lesson. Now I'm doing this exercise over a Chicago blues bass line. But that bass line is all quarter notes. So what I'm going to show you about how to get the ghost notes in the melody would apply equally to just a steady bass blues like this, or a walking bass that just went up the low string. Because the idea is that you're playing quarter notes in the bass, you're playing quarter notes in the melody, but on the offbeats, you're adding in these ghost notes. So let's try this out with a couple of simple blues licks. Here's one. And here's another. I'm just using licks from the minor and major pentatonic scales in the key of E. So here I've got the flat third, down to the root, over to the six, and then back to the root. And then for the second lick, it's flat seven, back up to the root. And so I've got rhythmically 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And for the next lick, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now when you're first learning to play scales or chords or whatever, you're encouraged to keep your fingers in this kind of arched shape so that as you go to get a particular note, you're not resting on any of the other strings or damping or keeping any of the other strings from ringing out. That's exactly what we don't want to do for this kind of playing. You want to let your fingers just rest flat on the strings as much as possible, and then just press the tip of whatever finger you're using into the fretboard to get the note you want. So if we do that, we want this note, we don't want the rest of these notes. And that means that we can use the index finger on the third string while we're picking the high string with the ring finger. And that means we can think of every note that's a quarter note not as 1, 2, 3, but think of it as and 1 and 2 and 3. So you're really anticipating each note with the and before it. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so now when you're playing quarter notes, you can still get that shuffle pulse. And that makes every quarter note still continue to carry the basic groove that you're trying to play, as opposed to just playing quarter notes that don't give you any kind of eighth note feel information. Now, when you are playing eighth notes, you don't need to worry about that because the eighth note feel of the line you're playing will carry that shuffle feel. Right? It's all in there. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you do this ghost note approach when you're playing quarter notes But when you start to go into more of an eighth note feel with the lick, you don't need to worry about it. Or, right, because you're playing and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and like that. Now there are going to be moments when the melody is completely at rest, but if you're playing, say, a steady bass, that's also carrying just quarter note information. But when the melody's at rest, you can continue that ghost note approach on the third string in between the downbeats of the bass line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and. Which means you now always have that shuffle feel covered somewhere in what you're doing. Which means there could be one of three things going on. You could have quarter notes in the melody. You could have eighth notes in the melody. Or you could have nothing in the melody. So if the bass is going on and you're playing quarter notes on top, then you're going to have, that's where your shuffle feel is going to come from. If you've got eighth notes on top, that's where the shuffle feel is going to come from. And if you've got nothing happening on top, that's where your shuffle feel is going to come from. You put all those things together, you've got the whole thing covered. And yeah, you could then get fancy and do something more with the bass line than just a steady bass. So in this case, this is the root, the fifth, the flat 7, and the root of E. And you could put in the offbeats there. So that's the idea. It's one of those things that, like, yeah, it's a feel thing, but there are specific ways you can work on incorporating that feel into your playing. And so if you just go step by step, first just being able to play the quarter notes with the offbeats, ghosted, and then eighth notes, and then getting those ghosted offbeats into the bass line, and then slowly trying to stitch the whole thing together, eventually it will become a more intuitive part of your playing. If you've been playing fingerstyle blues guitar and the whole issue of the groove and the coordination between your thumb and your fingers has been a stumbling block for you, I encourage you to check out my membership, the Fingerstyle 5, over at fretboardconfidential.com. We work on repertoire, we work on improvisation, and we work on a lot of these kind of nuts and bolts things that make the difference between playing the notes accurately off of tab and turning an arrangement into something that really grooves and feels like an actual song. So check that out, and if you've got a question or a comment about today's lesson, leave it for me down below. I would love to hear from you. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.